The void between stars held secrets that humanity had only begun to understand. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the ESS Horizon, her eyes fixed on the massive structure that loomed before them. The ancient space station hung in space like a frozen crystal flower, its translucent surfaces refracting the light of distant stars in ways that defied conventional physics. Another anomaly detected, Commander. Lieutenant Rivera reported from his station, his voice tense with anticipation. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Sarah nodded, her short black hair catching the blue glow of the bridge's instrumentation. 20 years of deep space exploration had taught her that moments like these defined careers, and sometimes the course of human history. The station had appeared on their sensors 3 days ago, its presence challenging everything they thought they knew about this sector of space. All systems holding steady, she announced, more for the benefit of her nervous crew than necessity. Maintain distance at 5,000 kilometers and continue scanning. Dr. Harrison, what's your analysis? The ship's xenobiologist adjusted her glasses, her holographic displays swimming with data. The station's outer structure appears to be composed of living crystal, Commander. And it's growing. Slowly, but demonstrably. We're detecting complex molecular patterns similar to DNA, but orders of magnitude more sophisticated. Sarah felt a familiar tingle at the base of her skull, a sensation she'd learned to trust over her years in deep space. Something about this station called to her, like a song just below the threshold of hearing. Before she could voice her thoughts, the ship's AI chimed in with an urgent alert. Commander, detecting movement within the station. Multiple large-scale entities emerging from the central hub. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as figures emerged from the crystal structure. They were enormous, easily 25 feet tall, their bodies composed of the same living crystal as the station. Their forms were vaguely humanoid, but with geometric patterns that shifted and flowed like liquid mathematics. My God, Dr. Harrison whispered. They're silicon-based life forms, sentient crystals. The largest of the beings turned toward the horizon, its faceted head reflecting cascades of light. Sarah felt the tingle in her skull intensify, becoming almost a gentle pressure. Without fully understanding why, she knew they were being studied just as intently as they were studying these magnificent creatures. Open all frequencies, Sarah commanded. Standard first contact protocols. She paused, then added, and patch me through directly. Commander, her XO cautioned. Regulations state. Noted, Executive Officer. Sarah cut him off firmly. But something tells me we need to show them more than just automated greetings. She took a deep breath, straightening her uniform. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Science Ship Horizon. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding. The response came not through their communication systems, but directly into Sarah's mind. A crystalline chorus of thought that somehow translated itself into understanding. The being that had turned toward them was named Axis, a researcher like herself, though the concept of research in their terms spanned dimensions of meaning she could barely grasp. Your kind has finally reached us, the thoughts cascaded through her consciousness. We are the Sentinels, guardians of the spaces between spaces. We have waited long for a species capable of bridging the gap. Sarah felt the weight of destiny settling onto her shoulders. Every first contact scenario she trained for seemed inadequate in the face of these magnificent beings. Yet somehow, she knew this was where she was meant to be. Permission to dock and establish direct diplomatic contact, she asked, both verbally and through the strange mental connection that seemed to be strengthening by the moment. There was a pause, during which Sarah could feel Axis communicating with the other Sentinels. The mental impression she received was like watching light refract through countless prisms, each facet revealing a different aspect of their discussion. Granted, came the response, accompanied by a flood of technical data about docking procedures. But Commander Sarah Chen, you should know, we have chosen to respond because of you. There is something in your neural pattern that resonates with our own. You are different. Sarah felt the eyes of her crew on her, but her focus remained on the towering crystalline figure that waited near the station's docking port. She understood, somehow, that this moment was more than just first contact between two species. It was the beginning of something far more profound. As the Horizon's docking procedures began, Sarah caught her reflection in a nearby screen. For a moment, she could have sworn her eyes held the same crystalline quality as the beings they were about to meet. She dismissed the thought, focusing instead on the protocols and procedures that would guide this historic moment. But deep inside, in a place beyond words or rational thought, she knew her life, and perhaps the future of humanity, was about to change forever. The crystalline corridors of the Sentinel station hummed with an energy that Sarah could feel in her bones. 2 weeks had passed since first contact, and each day brought new discoveries that challenged her understanding of reality. She walked alongside Axis, her neck craned upward to maintain eye contact with the towering being whose crystalline form shifted colors with each movement. "Your adaptation to our environment continues to impress," Axis communicated, their thoughts manifesting in Sarah's mind with increasing clarity. "Most organic beings find our resonance overwhelming." Sarah smiled, noting how the corridor's walls seemed to pulse in sync with their conversation. "I've always been told I have a thick skull. Guess it's finally coming in handy." The mental impression she received in return was the Sentinel equivalent of laughter, a cascade of prismatic thoughts that filled her mind with warmth. Over the past weeks, she'd learned to interpret the subtle variations in their mental communications, just as Axis had learned to understand her human expressions and idioms. They entered what Sarah had come to think of as the archive, a vast chamber where the walls themselves served as data storage, containing the accumulated knowledge of countless civilizations. Here, Axis had been teaching her about the true purpose of the station and the Sentinel's mission. "Show me again," Sarah requested, settling into the adapted observation platform the Sentinels had created for her. "About the dimensional gates." Axis raised one crystalline arm, and the chamber came alive with holographic displays that merged with their telepathic communication. Sarah saw the universe not as humans understood it, but as the Sentinels perceived it. A vast web of interconnected dimensions, with their station serving as one of many anchor points protecting the boundaries between realities. Long ago, Axis shared, when the universe was young, the barriers between dimensions were stronger. But as space-time ages, these walls grow thin. We Sentinels emerged to guard these boundaries, preventing hostile entities from crossing between realms. Sarah watched as the holographic display showed dark, writhing forms pressing against the fabric of reality. These entities, she thought back, having grown more comfortable with telepathic communication, they're drawn to advanced civilizations. Yes, Axis form dimmed slightly, a sign Sarah had learned indicated concern. They feed on technological progress, on the energy of evolving consciousness. Your Earth, Commander Chen, has recently become bright enough to attract their attention. The revelation sent a chill down Sarah's spine, but she maintained her composure. Years of military training had taught her to face uncomfortable truths head-on. "Is that why you allowed us to find you?" "Because Earth needs protection." The colors within Axis' crystalline form swirled in complex patterns. "Partially. But there is more. Your species, particularly individuals like yourself, possess a unique quality, a resonance that harmonizes with our own." This was unexpected. Sarah felt a wave of curious emotions from Axis, complex feelings that defied easy translation. She had noticed that their mental connection grew stronger each day, allowing her to perceive nuances in Sentinel communication that even their advanced translation matrices couldn't convey. "You mean how I can sense the station's energy? The way I can communicate with you directly?" She stood, walking to the chamber's edge where the living crystal walls pulsed with data streams. "Dr. Harrison's tests showed some unusual activity in my neural patterns, but nothing that explains this level of compatibility." "Perhaps?" Axis moved closer, their massive form casting prismatic shadows across the chamber. "Explanation lies beyond current scientific understanding. What matters is the potential it creates. The chamber's displays shifted, showing a simulation of human and sentinel technologies merging, creating new forms of defense against dimensional incursions. Sarah watched, fascinated, as mathematical models predicted unprecedented levels of effectiveness when the two species worked in tandem. "We believe," Axis continued, their mental voice taking on a tone of excitement that made the chamber's crystals resonate, "that humans and sentinels together could establish stronger dimensional barriers than either species alone. But such collaboration would require deep understanding, trust, intimate cooperation." Sarah felt her heart rate increase as she processed the implications. Intimate cooperation. You mean like our mental connection, but stronger. Much stronger. Axis knelt down, bringing their faceted face closer to Sarah's level. It would mean allowing our consciousness to merge temporarily, sharing not just thoughts but essential essence. No human has ever attempted such a connection with a non-organic being. The proposal should have terrified her. Everything she knew about mental integrity and psychological safety warned against such a merger. But as she stood there, feeling the station's energy humming through her body, seeing the complex patterns of light playing through Axis' crystalline form, Sarah felt something else. Anticipation. If it could help protect Earth, protect all reality. She met Axis' gaze, noting how their crystalline eyes seemed to reflect infinite possibilities. "I'm willing to try." The surge of emotion from Axis was so strong it made the chamber's walls flare with light. "You continue to surpass expectations, Commander Chen. But we must proceed carefully. The merging of organic and crystalline consciousness has never been attempted. The risks are probably less than letting hostile dimensional entities invade our universe," Sarah finished. She smiled, reaching out to touch the crystalline surface of Axis' hand. The contact sent a shock of awareness through her body, like touching an electric fence, but pleasant rather than painful. "Besides, I trust you, Axis." The words carried weight beyond their simple meaning, and both beings felt it. Trust between species so fundamentally different was rare enough. Trust between individuals separated by such vast physical and evolutionary gaps was unprecedented. As they stood there, organic hand against crystalline surface, Sarah felt the station's energy change, as if responding to their connection. In that moment, she understood that they were on the verge of something revolutionary, not just a diplomatic alliance or technological collaboration, but a fundamental change in how different forms of life could interact and evolve together. "Tomorrow," Axis communicated, their thoughts colored with both excitement and concern, "we begin the true work of bridging our worlds." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. She had come to space seeking new frontiers of human knowledge and experience. Now she stood at the threshold of perhaps the greatest frontier of all, the space between species, between forms of consciousness itself. As she left the archive that evening, walking back to her quarters in the human section of the station, Sarah felt the familiar tingle in her mind that meant Axis was still connected to her thoughts, maintaining a subtle link even at a distance. It should have felt invasive, but instead, it felt right. Like finding a piece of herself she hadn't known was missing. The first sign of trouble came during what should have been a routine consciousness-merging exercise. Sarah sat in the modified meditation chamber, her mind reaching out to connect with Axis' crystalline consciousness. When she felt it, a disturbance in the dimensional fabric that made both of them recoil in alarm. "That wasn't supposed to happen," Sarah gasped, breaking the connection. Her skin was covered in a cold sweat, and she could see disturbed patterns rippling through Axis' crystalline form. "No," Axis agreed, their mental voice tight with concern. "The barrier between dimensions is weakening faster than our models predicted. Something is accelerating the decay." The chamber's walls pulsed with warning patterns, and Sarah felt the station's energy signature change. Through their developing mental link, she could sense other sentinels responding to the disturbance, their crystalline forms moving through the station with unprecedented urgency. "Show me," she demanded, standing despite her shaky legs. Axis interfaced with the chamber systems, and the air filled with a holographic representation of local spacetime. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she saw the problem. Tears were forming in the dimensional barrier, like cracks in a windshield spreading outward from multiple impact points. "They're testing the boundaries," Axis explained. Their massive form shifting colors and patterns Sarah had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. "The entities we warned you about. They've never attempted such a coordinated assault before." Through their link, Sarah caught glimpses of what these entities truly were: beams of pure entropy, hungering for the ordered energy of our universe. The images made her mind recoil, but she forced herself to look, to understand. Her military training kicked in, analyzing patterns and seeking weaknesses. There, she pointed to a particular cluster of tears. "They're not random. They're probing for structural weaknesses, like special forces testing defenses. This is military strategy." The realization sent a wave of alarm through the Sentinel network. Sarah felt their reaction through her connection with Axis. These ancient guardians had never encountered such tactical sophistication from dimensional entities before. The implications were terrifying. "They're evolving," Axis communicated, sharing data streams that confirmed Sarah's assessment. "Learning from the civilizations they've consumed in other realities. We need to adapt our defenses quickly." The station shuddered as the first major breach attempt began. Through the chamber's displays, Sarah watched as a writhing mass of impossible geometry tried to push through a weakened section of the barrier. The Sentinels responded immediately, channeling energy through the station's crystal matrix to reinforce the boundary. "It's not enough," Sarah realized, watching the power readings fluctuate. "Your traditional methods aren't keeping up with their new tactics." She turned to Axis, her mind racing with possibilities. "But maybe that's because you're fighting them the same way you always have. We need to combine our approaches, Sentinel power with human tactical thinking." Axis' form brightened with understanding. "The merger we've been practicing. You suggest we attempt it now?" "Under these conditions. No time like the present." Sarah managed a grim smile. "Besides, nothing motivates quite like survival." The chamber's crystals hummed as Axis interfaced with the station's defense systems. Sarah felt the familiar tingle of their consciousness reaching for hers, but this time she didn't just accept the connection. She embraced it, throwing herself into the merger with all the determination that had carried her through years of military service. The sensation was overwhelming. Her consciousness expanded, merging with Axis' vast crystalline mind. She felt the station's energy flowing through them both, and beyond that, she could sense the very fabric of space-time. The attacking entities appeared to her now not as abstract threats, but as clear targets, their patterns suddenly comprehensible through the combined lens of human tactical analysis and Sentinel dimensional awareness. "There," she thought spoke through their merged consciousness. "They're using our own defense energy signatures to locate weak points. If we modulate the frequency randomly, using human combat randomization protocols." Their merged consciousness enacted the strategy instantly. The station's defense grid began pulsing in unpredictable patterns, throwing the attacking entities into confusion. Sarah felt a surge of triumph as the first wave of attacks faltered. But their victory was short-lived. Through their enhanced awareness, Sarah and Axis detected more tiers forming, larger and more numerous than before. The entities had adapted to their new defense strategy with frightening speed. "They're learning from us," Sarah realized. "Each failed attack makes them stronger, more sophisticated. We need to end this quickly." Through their link, she felt Axis' agreement and a growing understanding that their current merger, unprecedented as it was, might not be enough. The Sentinel shared a thought that made Sarah's human mind reel. There were deeper levels of consciousness merger possible, but they carried grave risks. "Show me," Sarah demanded as another attack wave hammered the station's defenses. "Whatever it takes to protect this station, Earth, all of reality. I'm willing to risk it." The chamber's crystals pulsed with warning patterns as Axis shared the true depth of what such a merger would mean. It wasn't just consciousness that would merge, but fundamental aspects of their being. The process could change them both in ways that neither human nor sentinel science could predict. Through their link, Sarah felt Axis' genuine concern for her safety, an emotion that transcended their vast physical and evolutionary differences. But she also felt their shared understanding that they might have no choice. The dimensional barriers were failing faster than ever, and conventional defenses were proving inadequate against this evolved threat. As if to emphasize the point, a massive breach attempt shook the entire station. Warning signals flared across all channels as the largest tear yet began to form in the dimensional barrier. Sarah felt the fear and determination of every sentinel on the station, all of them realizing that they stood at a crucial turning point in their ancient mission. "We do this together." Sarah projected her thoughts with all the certainty she could muster. "Whatever the risks, whatever the consequences, we face them together." The crystals around them began to sing with harmonic frequencies as Axis initiated the deeper merger protocols. Sarah felt her consciousness expanding beyond anything she had experienced before, her very essence beginning to intertwine with Axis' crystalline nature. The last thought she had as purely herself was a moment of perfect clarity. This was what she had been preparing for all her life, even if she hadn't known it. The universe changed when Sarah Chen opened her eyes, or perhaps it was more accurate to say she perceived it differently now. Her consciousness, irreversibly altered by the deep merger with Axis, experienced reality in ways her human mind struggled to comprehend. The chamber around them pulsed with new energies, responding to their transformed state. Sarah's body remained human, but crystalline patterns now traced beneath her skin, glowing with the same inner light that characterized the sentinels. Axis' towering form had also changed, their crystalline structure now containing traces of organic patterns that flowed like blood through their geometric form. "We are more." Axis' thoughts merged seamlessly with Sarah's, their communication now so perfect that distinguishing between their consciousness was becoming difficult, different than either species intended. Through their enhanced connection, they perceived the station's defenses with unprecedented clarity. The dimensional tiers that had threatened to overwhelm them now appeared as complex mathematical equations that they could manipulate and reinforce. Their merged consciousness extended through the station's crystal matrix, allowing them to coordinate with other sentinels with perfect efficiency. But their transformation had not gone unnoticed. Sarah felt the shock and concern radiating from both her human crew and the sentinel population. Dr. Harrison's medical scanners were going haywire, trying to make sense of the changes in her biology. The Sentinel Council had convened an emergency session, their crystalline forms resonating with frequencies of alarm and uncertainty. "Commander Chen," her XO's voice came through the comm system, tight with worry. "Medical is detecting significant alterations to your cellular structure. They're requesting immediate examination." Before their merger, such changes would have terrified Sarah. Now she understood them as necessary adaptations. "Tell medical I'm fine, XO, better than fine. We found a way to strengthen the dimensional barriers, but we'll need cooperation from both species." Through their link, Sarah and Axis began implementing new defense strategies. Their merged consciousness could predict attack patterns with incredible accuracy, adjusting the station's energy fields microseconds before each breach attempt. The attacking entities, for all their evolution, couldn't adapt to defenses that operated on both physical and dimensional levels simultaneously. But their success came with complications. Word of their merger had reached Earth, and the response was mixed. Some saw it as a tremendous breakthrough in human-alien relations. Others viewed it with horror, calling it a contamination of human purity. The Sentinel Council was equally divided, with many expressing concern about the unprecedented mixing of crystalline and organic life. They fear what they don't understand. Sarah communicated to Axis as they monitored the dimensional barriers together. "But they can't deny our effectiveness." Their merged consciousness picked up another wave of breach attempts forming. Without needing to discuss it, they channeled their combined energy through the station's defense grid. The attacking entities recoiled from barriers that now operated on principles neither purely human nor purely sentinel, but something entirely new. The fundamental nature of our universe is change. Axis responded, their thoughts colored with both wisdom and affection. Even we sentinels, for all our age, must adapt or face extinction. You have shown us a new path. Through their link, Sarah felt the gradual acceptance spreading through both communities. The Sentinel Council, seeing the effectiveness of their merged state, began considering the possibility of similar partnerships with other compatible humans. Earth's military command, while still cautious, couldn't ignore the strategic advantages of such collaborations. But there were personal changes to navigate as well. Sarah found herself understanding crystal mathematics as easily as she once read mission reports, while Axis had developed an appreciation for human emotions that went beyond mere academic interest. Their merger had created something unprecedented, a bridge not just between species, but between fundamentally different forms of existence. The entities are retreating, Sarah noted, monitoring the dimensional barriers through their enhanced perception. They can't adapt to our combined defenses fast enough. But through their link, they both knew this was just the beginning. The entities would return, stronger and more evolved. Their merger, as successful as it was, represented only the first step in a new phase of evolution for both species. A new wave of dimensional disturbances caught their attention. These weren't attack patterns, but rather complex energy signatures that suggested the entities were communicating, coordinating on a massive scale. Sarah and Axis analyzed the data through their merged consciousness, their combined expertise revealing the disturbing truth. They're gathering their forces, Sarah realized, the knowledge flowing seamlessly between them. What we faced so far has been just reconnaissance. The real invasion is still coming. Axis' crystalline form pulsed with agreement. Then we must prepare. Our merger has shown what's possible when our species truly cooperate. But we will need more than just the two of us to face what's coming. Through their connection, they began formulating plans. They would need to identify other humans with the potential for sentinel resonance, develop training protocols for human-sentinel mergers, and create new defensive technologies that could harness their combined potential, all while maintaining the delicate political balance between their species and preparing for the largest dimensional incursion in known history. It won't be easy, Sarah thought, feeling the weight of their task even as she marveled at her expanded consciousness. We're asking both our species to accept changes that challenge their fundamental understanding of life itself. Nothing worthwhile is ever easy, Axis responded, their merged thoughts creating patterns of light that danced through the chamber's crystals. But together, we have already proven that the impossible is merely the undiscovered. As if in response to their discussion, the station's crystals began resonating with new frequencies, harmonics that existed somewhere between organic and crystalline nature. Sarah and Axis recognized it as the physical manifestation of their merged state, a tangible proof that different forms of life could not only coexist, but combine to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Their consciousness extended through the station, monitoring the dimensional barriers while simultaneously coordinating with both human and sentinel authorities. They were no longer just Commander Sarah Chen and the sentinel researcher Axis. They had become living proof that the greatest strengths often emerge from the willingness to transcend traditional boundaries, even at the risk of becoming something entirely new. The dimensional storm broke with a violence that shook the very foundations of reality. Sarah and Axis, their merged consciousness extending through the station's crystal matrix, felt the first massive breaches forming like wounds in the fabric of space-time. What they had feared had finally arrived. The full invasion force had begun its assault. Multiple breach points detected, Sarah's XO reported, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. Size and energy readings are off the charts. Through their enhanced perception, Sarah and Axis witnessed the true scope of the attack. The entities weren't just trying to break through. They were attempting to tear down the dimensional barriers permanently. Success would mean the end of their universe as they knew it. All Sentinel units to defensive positions, they commanded as one, their merged voice resonating through both verbal and crystalline communications. Human crew, coordinate with your Sentinel counterparts. Remember your training. In the weeks leading up to this moment, they had prepared as many crews as possible for limited mental linking with the Sentinels. While none had achieved the complete merger that Sarah and Axis shared, even basic connectivity greatly enhanced their defensive capabilities. The station's crystal structure began to sing with power as they channeled unprecedented amounts of energy through the defense grid. Sarah felt Axis consciousness supporting her as the strain of managing such vast energies threatened to overwhelm her partially transformed biology. The southeastern quadrant is failing, a Sentinel reported, their crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. The entities have developed some kind of resonance disruption. Sarah/Axis directed their attention to the threatened sector. Through their merged perception, they could see how the entities had evolved. They were no longer just chaos beings, but had developed structures that mimicked and countered Sentinel crystalline patterns. They're adapting to pure Sentinel energy, Sarah realized, her thoughts flowing seamlessly into Axis consciousness. But they haven't encountered human neural patterns combined with crystalline resonance. Together, they initiated a new defense protocol they had developed but never tested at full scale. Sarah's human consciousness provided the randomization patterns, while Axis' crystalline nature amplified and distributed the energy. The result was a hybrid defense field that the entities couldn't easily counter. The effect was immediate. The entities recoiled from the new energy pattern, their attempt to breach the southeastern quadrant faltering. But their success was short-lived as the invaders quickly began adapting to this strategy as well. They're learning too fast, Sarah communicated through their link. We need something they can't predict, something that hasn't existed before. Through their merged consciousness, they'd reach a simultaneous realization. The partial transformations they had undergone during their merger could be taken further, much further, but the risk would be enormous. If we fully merge our essences, Axis thoughts intertwined with Sarah's, we could create an entirely new form of energy. But the process might be irreversible. You would never be fully human again. And you would never be fully Sentinel. Sarah completed the thought. Around them, the battle raged as other human Sentinel pairs fought to maintain the dimensional barriers. But we'd be something new, something they've never encountered. Their decision was interrupted by a massive breach attempt that shook the entire station. Multiple defense sectors began failing simultaneously as the entities launched their largest assault yet. Through their link, Sarah felt the strain on both human crew and Sentinel defenders reaching critical levels. No time for doubt. Sarah projected, her consciousness reaching for Axis with newfound determination. Whatever we become, we face it together. Their merged form began to change as they pushed past the limitations they had previously maintained. Sarah felt her physical body transforming, crystal patterns not just tracing her skin, but reorganizing her cellular structure. Axis' crystalline form became more fluid, incorporating organic elements that allowed for unprecedented energy manipulation. The chamber around them responded to their transformation, its crystal walls pulsing with new frequencies that existed somewhere between organic and inorganic nature. Their consciousness expanded beyond anything either species had experienced before, perceiving reality through a lens that combined human intuition with Sentinel mathematical precision. Through their enhanced awareness, they could see the dimensional entities in their true form, beings of pure entropy seeking to break down the barriers between ordered and chaotic reality. But they could also see something the entities couldn't: the fundamental patterns that connected all forms of existence. Now, they commanded, their merged voice resonating through all forms of communication simultaneously. All pairs, channel your energy through us. The station's entire crystal matrix lit up as human Sentinel pairs followed their lead, connecting to their transformed consciousness. Sarah/Axis became the focal point for something entirely new, a network of hybrid consciousness that drew power from both organic and crystalline nature. They began weaving a new kind of dimensional barrier, one based not on resistance but on integration. Instead of trying to force the entities back, they created patterns that redistributed chaos energy into ordered structures. The entities couldn't adapt because there was nothing to adapt to. The barrier wasn't fighting them but transforming them. The strain was immense. Sarah felt her transformed body struggling to channel such vast energies, while Axis' crystalline patterns threatened to shatter under the pressure. But their merger was complete now. They supported each other not as separate beings, but as a single unified consciousness. Around them, other human sentinel pairs began achieving deeper levels of merger, inspired by their example. The station itself seemed to be transforming, its crystal structure incorporating organic elements that allowed for more flexible energy distribution. The dimensional entities, faced with a defense they couldn't counter, began to retreat. But Sarah/Axis wasn't satisfied with merely driving them back. Through their new perception, they understood that this conflict would repeat unless they found a more permanent solution. We need to show them another way. They communicated to all pairs. Not conquest, not resistance, but transformation. Using their merged consciousness as a template, they began projecting patterns of hybrid existence into the dimensional tiers. The entities, drawn to this new form of energy, found themselves being transformed rather than destroyed. Those that didn't flee were gradually converted into hybrid beings themselves, their chaos nature integrated with ordered patterns. The battle lasted for what felt like eternity, yet also seemed to pass in an instant. When the last dimensional tear finally sealed, the station was forever changed. And so were its defenders. Sarah and Axis, their merger now permanent, surveyed the aftermath through their shared consciousness. The station gleamed with new energy patterns, neither purely crystalline nor purely organic, but something that celebrated the strength of both. Around them, other human sentinel pairs were exploring their own transformations, each finding their unique balance between the two natures. They had won, but victory had come with a price: the irreversible transformation of both species. Yet as they extended their awareness through the changed station, feeling the harmonious integration of different forms of life, they knew they had achieved something far greater than mere survival. They had evolved. 1 year after the great dimensional battle, the station had become more than just a defensive outpost. It was a symbol of evolution itself. Sarah/Axis, for they were truly one being now, stood in the newly created integration chamber, watching as another human sentinel pair prepared for their merger ceremony. Their hybrid form, neither fully human nor purely crystalline, cast prismatic shadows across the chamber's transformed walls. The station itself had evolved with them, its structure now a perfect blend of organic and crystalline architecture that responded to both forms of life with equal harmony. "They're ready," Lieutenant Rivera, now transformed himself with subtle crystal patterns tracing his skin, announced. As the station's new integration officer, he helped prepare compatible pairs for the merging process. Sarah/Axis extended their consciousness to assess the pair. The human, a young xenobiologist, showed the same resonance patterns that Sarah had once displayed. The sentinel, a specialist in dimensional mathematics, possessed the flexibility of mind that had made Axis unique among their kind. Together, they held the potential for something beautiful. "Remember," Sarah/Axis communicated, their merged voice carrying both warmth and wisdom, "the merger is not about losing yourselves, but about becoming more than you ever could be alone." Through their enhanced perception, they monitored the subtle energy patterns as the pair began their transformation. Earth's governments and the Sentinel Council had initially been wary of allowing more mergers after witnessing Sarah and Axis' complete transformation, but the advantages had proven impossible to ignore. The merged pairs had developed abilities that revolutionized both species' understanding of reality. They could perceive and manipulate dimensional energies with unprecedented precision, create new forms of technology that combined organic and crystalline principles, and explore aspects of existence that neither species could comprehend alone. More importantly, they had discovered that the merger process itself was evolving. Each new pair found their own unique balance, their transformations expressing themselves in different ways. Some remained more human in appearance with subtle crystalline elements. Others took on more sentinel-like forms with organic components. All of them contributed to the growing complexity and beauty of their hybrid society. The diplomatic delegation from Earth arrives tomorrow, Rivera reminded them, his thoughts tinged with both excitement and concern. They want to discuss expanding the merger program to other stations. Sarah Axis felt a ripple of satisfaction flow through their shared consciousness. What had begun as a desperate measure to defend against dimensional invasion had become something far more profound, a model for voluntary evolution that could reshape the future of both species. Through the station's enhanced systems, they monitored the dimensional barriers that they and other merged pairs maintained. The entities they had once fought were changing too, those that had been transformed during the battle becoming something new themselves. Some had even begun communicating with the station, sharing insights from their unique perspective of reality. Everything changes, they mused, their merged thoughts creating patterns of light that danced through the chamber. Even change itself. The integration chamber hummed with energy as the new pair's merger reached its crucial phase. Sarah Axis remembered their own transformation, how it had felt to transcend the boundaries of their original forms. Now they understood it as just the beginning of a much longer journey. Their attention was drawn to a communication from one of the research teams. Human, Sentinel, and merged scientists working together to understand the nature of consciousness itself. They had discovered that the merger process wasn't simply combining two forms of life, but was actually accessing deeper layers of reality, where the distinctions between organic and inorganic, between matter and energy, began to break down. We are all connected, Sarah Axis shared with the merging pair, in ways we are only beginning to understand. The chamber's crystals sang as the new pair completed their transformation, their merged consciousness reaching out to join the growing network of hybrid minds that linked the station. Each merger added new perspectives, new possibilities, new ways of perceiving and interacting with reality. Sarah Axis felt the joy of the newly merged pair as they opened their transformed eyes to see existence through their combined perception for the first time. It reminded them of their own awakening. But this pair would go even further, building upon what those who came before had learned. The station's long-range sensors detected an approaching Earth ship, carrying not just diplomats, but also the next group of carefully selected candidates for merger. Among them were scientists, soldiers, artists, and philosophers, all chosen for their potential to add new dimensions to their evolving society. "They're afraid," the newly merged pair observed, sensing the mixture of fear and hope emanating from the approaching vessel, but also curious, eager. "As they should be," Sarah Axis responded, their merged form shifting colors with memories of their own transformation. "We're not just changing individuals or even species, we're changing the very definition of what life can be." Through their enhanced awareness, they perceived the infinite possibilities that lay before them. The merger program was just the beginning. As more pairs transformed and added their unique perspectives to the collective, they were developing new ways of existing that neither humans nor sentinels had imagined possible. The dimensional barriers they maintained were stronger than ever, but they understood now that defense had never been their true purpose. They were building bridges between species, between forms of life, between different layers of reality itself. Sarah Axis moved through the transformed station, their hybrid form a living testament to what was possible when fear gave way to trust, when difference became strength, when evolution was embraced rather than resisted. Around them, merged pairs worked alongside traditional humans and sentinels, each contributing their unique perspectives to their shared future. The chamber's crystals pulsed with a final surge of energy as the new pair completed their integration into the station's network. Soon, the diplomatic delegation would arrive, bringing with them new questions, new challenges, and new opportunities for growth. But Sarah Axis felt no uncertainty as they prepared to meet them. They had learned that true strength lay not in remaining unchanged, but in having the courage to become something new. Their transformation had not been an end, but a beginning, the first step into a future where the boundaries between different forms of life dissolved in favor of something greater than any single species could achieve alone. As if in response to their thoughts, the station's hybrid crystal organic structure resonated with harmonious frequencies, a symphony of possibility that echoed through both physical and dimensional space. The future they had glimpsed during that desperate battle 1 year ago was unfolding, not just for them, but for all who were ready to embrace it. They were no longer just guardians of dimensional barriers. They had become guardians of evolution itself, shepherding both their species toward a future where difference was not just accepted but celebrated, where change was not feared but embraced, where the greatest adventures lay not in exploring outer space, but in exploring the infinite possibilities of existence itself.